Ernesto Padilla of Padilla Cigars, and today I am at the home of the Padilla Miami. We started here in Miami in 2003 and still make our Padilla Miami 811 here on the corner of 8th Street and 11th Avenue. We're making it here at El Titan de Bronce. We've been making our cigars here for several years now. It's got many accolades, including one of the top 25 cigars of the year back in, I believe, 2014. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the process of blending a cigar, what we use. Going to show you a little bit of the leaves that go into it. Like Coca-Cola, we're a little sensitive about the blend that we use. As a matter of fact, Sandra, who runs the operation, she started turning these little things around. This is from Agrinosa Tobacco Growers. Can't show it to you too much because she's literally that sensitive about showing. She doesn't. Tobacco we get from these guys is top of the top premium stuff that even a lot of people in Nicaragua don't get. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So let's put that back so she doesn't get mad at me. You see the bales behind me. This is literally how they come and are shipped up. So we're going to, first off, we actually literally start with a blend book. There's actually a book that actually has the recipe for everything that we make. This is, for example, Seco. Doesn't get a lot of love. Not talked about too much. The Seco is gonna kind of be the foundation of a home, if you will. The concrete slab where everything's gonna build from to a certain extent. It provides structure, rigidity to the actual physical cigar, but it actually, depending on how we use the Ligero, the Viso, which I'll talk to you in a minute about, which are kind of more of the engines of the cigar, driving the nicotine content, driving flavor, driving spice. And that's what we have here. This is the Nica Ligero. And I wish they came out with a way to smell this so you can tell the potency of it. The Viso, actually, which is lighter in strength, this one is actually even darker, more rustic than this Nica Ligero that we have here from Fernandez. We're using Agrinosa in this blend. And again, here's how it goes. Got the Viso underneath. You got the Seco, and you got the Viso, and you have the Ligero. And then you basically wrap it all up. And I'm trying to simplify it for you with the binder. This is Habano Ecuador binder. This is basically a wrapper that might have not passed the visual test, meaning it's not as pretty, things of that nature. We use two of these binders. Some people usually use one, we use two. This is going to hold all the fillers in place, and it's going to function with the wrapper. If you use a thinner wrapper, you can go with a little bit thicker binder, vice versa. Those are some basics of blending. And then we have the star of the show. This is the Habano Ecuador leaf, grown by the Oliva family out of Tampa. This wrapper is beautiful. It's one of the most expensive on the market, but this wrapper started to be grown by them in the early 2000s. And they came out with a wrapper called Habano 2000. And at that time, there were some issues with the burn and things like that, but it needed more fermentation time. And originally, the seed strain came from Cuba. After several generations, they can now take its siblings and use that to continue growing. But this wrapper, when it came on the market, it really shook things up. A lot of the things that were from the cigar boom of the 90s incorporated Cameroon, Africa tobacco. It incorporated Connecticut, milder, softer tobaccos. But when the Oliva family started planting this there, it just really took off, along with the Sumatra, which is a beautiful wrapper. And this is what we use in the Padilla Miami. And this is the star of the show, the workhorse for what is the premium non-Cuban cigar industry. And this tobacco, I mean, just looking at it, you will see that it's just unbelievable. The elasticity, the flavor, and I mean, it's a decent sized leaf, good sized leaf. We also use a Corojo varietal that they're doing there. Now, when you get into putting all these components together, you need about 30 days from when you blend it to have an idea of what you have. You can't just blend a cigar and then that's it. Cigars, when you blend them, and they, for lack of a better term, marinate together. So this wrapper grows in the foot of the Andes. And one of the things that makes this area unique is both the soil, but also the natural shade that happens pretty much year round. The cloud cover. The plant, as you've probably heard from biology, is like a big solar panel. It gets its energy from the sun. So it grows more elastic down there. It's the sun's rays are being diffused a little bit by the natural cloud cover. In March, the land down there, the Guayas region, will actually flood. Some of that sediment, a lot of it stays there. In May, they start the process of planting. So once it starts going in there, first starts with seedlings in a barn. You've probably seen pictures of it. From there, it starts going into the fields once it gets a certain age. In 55 days, this wrapper will basically be ready to be picked. A lot of the lower priming stuff, libre de pie as it's called, that stuff gets discarded. And only what's left is the wrapper. From there, we'll go into the curing barns, and from there, it starts losing its natural green color. Chlorophyll starts coming out. They're packed in, I believe, like 100-pound cardboard boxes, and I'll go through like what's called a light fermentation or sweating, if you will, and that's when the color really starts coming into play. From there, I'll go into what's called pre-industries, and another fermentation takes place where tobacco is placed in pilones, which are basically piles of tobacco, one on top of the other, specially sorted. And from there, it takes 30, 60, depending on the wrapper, and naturally through heat and water, ammonia, and the starches start breaking down, and that's really where the fine cooking, if you will, of the tobacco starts taking place to get to this level. So it's a really complex, very hands-on process. And then we can talk a little bit about the fillers, where they come from, and what they do. So here's the book. Kept in a safe, actually. I put a little bit of tape on some of the things because it's literally like Coca-Cola. It is our formula. We don't want to give it away. But literally, when it's time to roll, when it's time to get ready, this is the book we're going to go to for the Miami 11, and it's going to specify the size, proportionally, the tobaccos, the percentage that it's going to use, and what tobaccos we're going to use. And that's when we get into this stuff, which I talked a little bit about earlier. So you hear a lot about Ligero. And when people first go down to these factories or they come here, I want to make a strong cigar, let's put Ligero, because they might have heard that catchphrase and things like that. But Ligero can actually take away from the flavor of a cigar because it has so much higher nicotine content. It's the higher priming on the top of the plant, the coronas. These are getting the most sun, the most intensity. They're the thickest. They have to be in the middle of the blend for combustion's sake. Everything around it, what I showed you, the seco and the binder, those are going to add the combustion. So they're going to burn faster. So when you have a cigar, you should see a point on the tip of a cigar when you ash it. That means it's been properly bunched and it's burning perfectly. This is the Ligero burning slower at the tip. This is the wrapper on the outside, the binder coming in, and you have the seco, and then you have the viso, and you have the Ligero. Those are the components as you start coming in, and they fall in different parts of the plant. We don't just take one plant and that's it and you're done. You know, we might do one farm, one region, one country, different things. But when we want to increase the power of a cigar, but we don't want to overload it, overpower you, so you're just getting black pepper, you're not tasting a cigar, you're just sensing a cigar. So you can have a strong cigar with less flavor than actually a bit milder cigar. So this is where things like the Fernandez, Aganorsa Fernandez, Eduardo Fernandez, the owner Aganorsa, that's what we call it, this viso can add to that. Depending on the region it's grown in Nicaragua, meaning Jalapa, closer Honduras border and the northern side, that's going to have a little bit of a sweeter flavor profile, some creamier notes. Esteli is going to be the region where most of the cigar factories that you know of are in Nicaragua. And the soil there is just designed for Ligero. It's just great, powerful stuff. But you don't want to overdo it. You want to balance it out. Here we actually use, I won't get too much into this Seco where it's from, but this is the only component that is not from Nicaragua. It's going to round it off there. And then we move back here. And then we have what many of you know, the Ligero. And this, if you were to smell it, automatically it starts tingling your nose and you start sneezing on it. And this is going to provide the most strength. So sometimes we use, depending on the blend, we use a whole leaf, we use half a leaf, maybe more of the Viso, things of that nature. So that is the main components that go, for example, into our Padilla Miami. All those things come together to create the cigar you're tasting that's going to transition, provide different flavor profiles, and create a nice smoking experience for you.